as always, that was good friend of the show and former podcast guest, Colin Gow, with our theme song podcast. I am Steve Shoney. I'm the city manager for the city of Upper Arlington. I am here as almost always with my co-host.
I like the title, Darren Shulman. I'm the city attorney.
And I got to be honest with you. This guest, I'm super excited about.
This has been the great Moby Dick of guests. Like, we've been chasing him for 3 years.
We have been chasing him. And, I mentioned Colin earlier, and Colin was actually deeply involved in...
this is a great story.
Oh, Colin actually got this guest?
Colin helped get this guest because, if you recall, we had Colin on and we talked about how we'd had guests, and we mentioned on the podcast with Colin that we were having trouble getting this guest. And this guest's mom is a regular at Colin's Coffee.
Oh.
And a regular listener. And the guest's mom and Colin conspired. And Jim Lynch's mother was integral in guilting him into doing this podcast because Jim has
refused.
You were like a general in plotting this out. I mean, it worked perfect. She, a nice Sunday dinner, she puts a little pressure on little Jimmy and says, hey, I understand they want you to do this podcast. And, I think you have to do that. That's something that's important to this community. Why wouldn't you do it? And please do it for Colin, if not for Steve.
So thank you, Mrs. Lynch. Thank you so much for helping us get the one and only Councilman Jim Lynch on the podcast today. So, Jim, welcome.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. It's one of these things where I've spent my entire career in communications and strategic communications, and I have a lot of times where the principal I've worked for, somebody wants to put them on a podcast, and I say, we don't want to be the first. We want to make sure they build a big
base.
A big base and a big following before we put you on. And so sometimes we just want to make sure that the numbers were there. We got the ROI. And, I got to practice what I preach to my clients. And so I thought, let's just wait until we pass a strong threshold. And now that just about everyone in this community listens to this podcast, I feel like it's time.
That's not accurate, but but we've got you here already, and I'm glad we convinced you of that. And so...
and the timing is crucial here because we're getting close to Election Day. We're losing our ability to get Jim here. This is right up against the wire.
Jim is currently a city council member and is rolling off of city council. But before we get too far into that, you mentioned that you've been in strategic communications your entire career. And so... you also admitted, a little too proudly, that you have never listened to the podcast. So we do a bit at the beginning of every podcast called Start, Bench, Cut. So we are going to give you...
He's taking notes.
He is taking notes.
He's the least prepared and yet the most prepared at the same time.
And that rapper sound is Darren eating a chocolate.
It's right after Halloween. It's happening.
No,
let's do it.
Today is Halloween, by the way.
Oh, trick or treat for us
I've heard people talk in the community about this Start, Bench, Notes, and so I've picked up a little information.
So Start, Bench, Cut. We're going to give you three things.
Cut.
We're going to give you 3 things. One of them is your starter, just like a team. It's like your go-to. You're doing it all the time. Second one, you can bring in and use periodically. Third, never again. It's gone off the face of the earth.
Now, we came up with 2.
We've got 2 different sets of 3.
And one is going to be more difficult.
I don't know that one's going to be more difficult than the other.
They're
just different.
They're different.
So these are presidents who you would get to be their communications person.
Let's do it. This sounds fun.
So
didn't do well in history, though.
One's your go-to. One's your off-the-bench. Third one you can never work with.
And just before he reads them, they're not based on their policies or whatever. It's like their oration. Like, you are writing them and they're going to deliver this speech.
JFK, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama.
And I have to go through and say,
which one is going to be the one delivering? Yeah.
Which one's coming off the bench? Which one's your 6th man in basketball terms? You got a hockey kid. Which one's on the second line coming in? Did I get that
which
right?
one is inactive for the day or forever?
Which one's a healthy scratch? Forever. You're cutting. gone. This is the most time anyone's ever taken with one of
I
these.
mean, he's like actually playing out. This is
Well, I would say, I would probably, when I came on city council, something that was important to me was being fiscally responsible. And so I'd probably start Bill Clinton just because there's a lot of conversations right now about the government shutdown.
But this is as a communications
Yes.
thing.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, as a communicator, because he's a good communicator on these issues.
And, he balanced the federal budget. And so I think I would probably start Bill Clinton. I've met him, so I have a little,
Oh, you met Bill Clinton?
I did. I was on the other side. I was working on the Bush Quail campaign, but I still had a chance to meet him. Barack Obama. That was a really tough one with Bill Clinton or Barack Obama, because Barack Obama is a very gifted orator. I mean, he really is good, and he can pull passion out of people, and it's very rare to have a president like that can really speak. But JFK had the same similarities. So you couldn't go wrong with any of them. I would probably put Barack Obama on the bench, JFK. Obviously, I was so young at that point, I didn't know as much about him as I know about the others. So it's just hard to feel that energy. But that's my list.
So we kind of made that kind of tough because, as you mentioned, you were working on the Bush Quail campaign. So we purposely picked 3 Ds, but we have a nice 3 Rs for you as well.
All right,
so
let's do it.
Teddy Roosevelt, Abraham Lincoln, Ronald Reagan.
Now we have a prediction on this one, but we're not going to spoil
Definitely
it.
Ronald Reagan is my starter.
That was the prediction.
Abraham Lincoln would be on the bench. Cut.
Couldn't
Teddy's
see you.
gone.
Yep.
So
How'd you guys guess?
We guessed that you would start Reagan.
Yeah.
We didn't get too into the weeds with the other two.
we figured, knowing your age and kind of history a little bit, we figured that Reagan was probably kind of a seminal figure in your early formation of ideals and things like that.
Since we knew it was probably going to be Reagan, that's why we led with the
we didn't want to make it too easy.
first.
Well, you guys put a lot of thought into that. It was fun.
Yeah, we that's like the most prep we do for this podcast is the start.
Although
we don't really care about anything else.
Yeah, we did end up having to use Google on this.
We were trying to figure out who the good presidential speakers are. So we
Well,
Googled
listen,
a little
you couldn't go wrong with any of those. They're all strong.
bit. Who was the
I
backup?
wish you had some. Wish you had some variety in there. You could put a bunch
were-
of
okay,
you put a
let's-
bunch of all stars and all.
So we
these.
were thinking about going. We were thinking about going way back and like doing Thomas Jefferson
and like FDR and stuff. Do you have
yeah,
thoughts
FDR.
on?
I don't. Here's the thing. At the end of the day, I'm not a big fan of politics. You might say, "Oh, Jim worked in politics." I never felt like I was working in politics. I was always convinced by the person we were working for that we were just repairmen and women helping fix problems in the state of Ohio, and so I never really considered myself in politics. And even today on city council, people are like, "Oh, are you going to miss politics?" And I'm like, "I don't think I'm in politics. I'm a public servant, just giving back to the community." So I've never looked at my position here or any job I've had through that political lens.
So when taking these kind of start bench cuts and taking a broader picture of it, what are you looking for when you're like, I am writing, a speech or something? Like, what do you want in a speaker, or how are you kind of taking that?
Well, I'll tell you
build it to them?
something I've learned is, number one, writing a speech is like giving pints of blood. It's draining. It takes a long time. It's not easy. But thing that I've found that's very good is no one wants to hear somebody read a speech. They know somebody else prepared it. I like to do kind of an outline, bullet points, just so they can quickly look down, see this is what they want to talk about, make that point, then look down, see another buzzword, because I think it just comes across as so more engaging when people just go off the cuff.
So you're more of cover these points and giving them like zippy one-liners that they got to work in.
Yeah, or just it's preparation. If I told you that if you're going to speak to a big group, you should always practice, and so I think you should always practice with your principal, and you put together an outline, talk about some of the things you want to hit, and then just kind of have an index card where you want to talk about how this is good for families, and then you put a couple bullet points down there. Might be some facts that you want to bring back up, but I just feel like it comes across more authentically if you don't just get up and read a speech.
So, just for the listeners, you walk us through kind of the resume timeline.
So I've spent 30 probably 5 years in strategic communications, and that's one of the reasons why I decided to run for city council, is because I thought I had a skill set that would help. We were coming off a divided time where there was a recall on members of council, and people just didn't trust council, didn't think they were listening to their views. And I thought, I actually have a skill set with 35 years. I might as well run for city council. I think I could help improve the way the city speaks and, most importantly, listens to the community. But my career, I spent 13 years at the Ohio Department of Natural Resources. It's state parks, hunting, fishing, boating. Obviously, no politics there. It was just a wonderful, wonderful experience. And I never thought I was going to leave.
You were in communications
I was
at
there,
that point.
yep. And then I
Okay,
went.
hold on. What's your favorite park? You spent 13 years with ODN, or top couple. If I'd known this, we'd have done start bench cut on parks.
You have to put Old Man's Cave in there, but there's so many. You have Ash Cave. The whole region's very important. I think that's where you would send anybody. But probably I spent a lot of time helping the state acquire Middle Bass Island, so we have a new park up there. Marblehead Lighthouse holds really a special place in my heart. That's where I asked my wife to marry me, on the top of the Marblehead Lighthouse.
Oh, cool.
That should probably be your start, just a hint, just for your wife listens to this.
And so we went up to the very top. I told her I had to scout it out because we were going to have an event there, and she was feeling sick, and we walked up to the top of the stairs, and then I said, "Do you know what's down there to the right?" And she says, "No." And I said, "What town?" And she said, "Oh, that's Cleveland." I said, "Do you know what town is off to the left?" And she said, "Yeah, that's Toledo." And that's when I got down on my knee and I said, "And that's where I'd like to take your hand in marriage." And she was like just completely shocked. I gave her gave her the ring. It was too big, and then she was worried it was going to fall all the way down the stairs, so she's holding on to it
Well
for dear
done.
life. So yes,
Nicely
that
done,
worked out
Jim.
well.
Now,
So-
did you have that completely written out, or did you just have bullet points?
Did you have your cards? Did you practice?
Did break a little sweat though,
That's where we took our engagement pictures.
All right.
Yeah.
But it was interesting because she was sleeping on the way up, and we were getting close, and I just remember. I know you guys are big into music.
Yeah.
And a song I listened to a lot when I was a kid was "Stairway to Heaven." We all did, didn't we? And so, like,
Classic
right when
song.
we're pulling in, the last 5 minutes, she's still sleeping. And that comes on the radio, and I was like, it just kind of settled me down, just because that was like, we have comfort foods, but we have comfort songs.
Yeah.
And so that was important.
She had no
spent-
idea.
No, she had no idea. So 13 years at the Department of Natural Resources, and then I left there to go be the spokesperson for Ohio State University. I was there for 7 years, and then I went to go work for the governor and his communications director there, and I was there for 7 years.
That
and
was
then
with Kasich.
with Governor Kasich. And then when I had to turn off the lights, I decided to kind of hang my own shingle and go out and find some select clients that I could give my best work to, and enjoying working as a small business owner.
Cool. So, what in that time, what were the 2 or 3 hardest kind of communications moments for you? I think because, I spent 13 years working at the state and 6 years at the city of Columbus and now 6 years here. And when you work in government at a certain level, you have those moments that how you communicate and what you say really, really matters. What are some of those moments for you that you look back and you're like, wow, that was a big moment for me and for the person that I was supporting?
Well, I mean, as a communicator, you don't want to be spending too much time in crisis communications. You want to be proactive. You want to be selling your agenda. But crisis communications can consume your life when you're in them. And so I had crisis after crisis situation. When I was at Ohio State, obviously we had an NCAA investigation, but I remember my first month on the job, I got a call in the middle of the night, and there was a dormitory, and there were too many students that were on the elevator, and the elevator just kind of went down half a floor, but then just stopped. Well, a student tried to jump out of that elevator. Then the elevator went back in motion.
Oh, no.
And so that consumed probably 6 months of my life.
Yeah.
In addition to everything else I had going on. And then, so it was just, and then you have bomb threats, and you have shootings, and you have killings. And, at a place like Ohio State, you have a board that's run by all the biggest business folks in the state of Ohio. And so there's really no margin for error. You have to be on the top of your game every single second. Can't say the wrong thing. You have to manage everything the right way. You obviously have a brand like Ohio State that you have to do all you can to uphold that strong brand name and reputation. And then you go to work, and then when I went to go work at the governor's office, that was the most rewarding because you're actually, like I said, you're putting policies that were fixing the state of Ohio, helping people create more jobs, helping lift people from the bottom economic ladder through tax incentives, whatever it might be. But you truly were changing lives, and that was very rewarding. But you had to kind of just figure out what your agendas. Your boss led with the agenda, and that was Governor Kasich, and so we had to. He went big on all his budgets, and that's one of the reasons why I went to go work for him was because they said. At first, I said, no, I don't want to get in politics. And they said, well, we don't consider this politics. We consider this just public service. And I was like, okay. But, he wanted to expand Medicaid. And he wanted to leverage the turnpike to fix the highways without a gas tax increase. And expand Medicaid, which was highly controversial. Blow up the education and higher education funding formulas and put new funding formulas in place. And I said, I'll come help you for 6 months. And I went in, and I found the work so rewarding that I thought, I'm going to stay a little longer because this is, something that touches every single Ohioan.
When you communicate like in that role, are you talking to the public? Are you talking to the legislatures? Is it all of the above? Like, who is your audience in that role?
You kind of, I always say that when you have communications goals, you have to build a communications plan so everybody knows where you're rowing. Everyone can row in the right direction. So key part of that is when you have let's say, expanding Medicaid, you'd have a plan on how we're going to get that across the finish line. And so you have different stakeholders. And so you're right. At the end of the day, it's about getting the votes in the legislature. But if the public isn't happy with a certain proposal and you don't explain it to the public the right way, then the public's going to push back on their lawmakers and say, it doesn't make any sense to me. I don't think this is right. So yes, there's a public. You have to try to persuade the public, and you have to try to persuade the legislature.
So, you started out in communications when, it was, you had your local news broadcast, you had the Dispatch of the Inquirer, the Plain Dealer, the Blade, the Dayton Daily News, and
the Oxford Press,
and the Vindicator, right?
Mm-hmm. Good job, Steve, by the way.
I was going to say, as I'm doing that,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh wow, I'm actually impressing myself that
you were definitely trying to flex your knowledge.
There was a little.
I know all the papers.
When I went to the Vindicator, I was like, okay, can I do this? Can I really get them all? But the media outlets, it was a known universe, right? Mm-hmm. As you advise clients today, like, what's the framework you give them for thinking about how you use different channels and the fact that there's not a known universe of channels?
Yeah, you just have to. I always tell everyone we have to stay up on the latest trends. Like what is going to be the next Twitter? What will be, people have been experimenting around a little bit about threads. Now you see a giant increase right now in Substacks. We probably have 100,000 plus Substacks.
What is a Substack?
It's like an online newsletter, but you can do, you can have video elements of it. It's also like a Twitter platform. You can have some long form. The New York Times is now publishing certain Substack essays that they see out there, but I think Substack is the one that's growing most now.
And you subscribe to like the Jim Lynch Substack,
correct?
And maybe I pay you for it or something.
Yes, they have usually a free version, but then if you like to, if you have a paid version, then maybe they throw in a couple extra things that you get. But yes, it's basically like, okay, is it worth me paying $7 a month to follow somebody? That's 1 cup of coffee almost. So
won't you be our neighbor? Substack.
Boom.
Boom.
And it comes across like a Twitter feed, right? And then you can expand it into articles and videos.
Correct.
And
yeah,
whatnot.
it all depends how your thing's set up. You can
Yeah.
either go directly through to the Substack webpage, or there is kind of like a dashboard, like you're saying, that almost makes it look like a Twitter platform. Right. But I think you have to stay up on the evolving trends. But listen, you have to just use all the different tools in the toolbox. And like if, for example, you're trying to change community perception on something, then you might want to do some targeted digital ads to really penetrate the folks you're trying to find, because the fact is a lot of communities have lost their weekly newspapers.
Yeah.
Or our beat reporters who used to cover them. The newsrooms continue to shrink. Listen, the traditional media might be smaller than ever before, but when you look at the universe of all media, with social media, it's bigger than ever.
Yeah. It's interesting. One thing I've observed with that piece, and if you observe how the quote-unquote traditional written-based media has evolved, I feel like in some ways they've gotten better because they know the content has to be better. So like if you look at the reporting, I'll use the Dispatch as an example. Like you can see the difference in the Dispatch over the last couple of years where they're reporting, the articles are longer, they're more in depth, they take a little bit more time. I think some of that's probably because they're not tied to column inches. And they've recognized that they have to be different than Twitter. So anyway.
Well, it continues to evolve every day. So
yeah. You've made so you described your career, and I'm curious, you spent the bulk of your career up until, let's call it 8 years ago, working in pretty big bureaucracies.
Yeah.
And then you started out on your own and became an entrepreneur. How did that transition feel for you, going from kind of the OSU bureaucracy, the state of Ohio bureaucracy, to being an entrepreneur out there, kind of
you can be a lot more. You can be a lot more nimble when you got a small staff.
Yeah,
and you can. I always say when you're working a big bureaucracy like Ohio State or state government, it takes a long time to turn that. It's like a giant boat, and it's just hard to turn it and steer it.
Which bureaucracy felt bigger, the state or
I think they
OSU?
were both. I think they were both about equal.
Okay.
Honestly, yeah.
Yeah.
So you're obviously very nimble in your own business because it's you, and you've been with these big battleships you got to turn around, but you're also on council for Upper Arlington. I'm curious as your perspective on where we fall on that line of nimble versus, I mean, we are government still, so we can't just do whatever.
I think we're a lot more nimble, yes, because we're smaller. We have a smaller footprint, and so
that's been my observation as well.
And plus, I mean, listen, when we want to do something targeted, we could do it very quickly, and we can communicate very quickly. Also helps to have a great staff. We have a fantastic staff here, which, you two hosts are helping set the example.
Aww.
It's like the nicest thing he's ever said to us. One of the things that, and I'm kind of pivoting to your time on council now, so Steve can rein me in.
No, go ahead.
You've been one of the most energetic proponents of community outreach, and I think that kind of dovetails with what you said before about you got to communicate with your council members, you also have to communicate with the public. Talk to me a little bit about A, kind of your thoughts on that, and B, how well you think we've been doing.
Well, listen, I mean, I ran with a purpose. I ran because I wanted to, as I mentioned earlier, improve the way we speak and listen to the community, but I didn't do it alone. We had, back in those early days, Kip Greenhill he was bought in, Brian Close was bought in, our entire council was bought into that approach. And I still remember the first couple weeks on the job, and I was getting a little pushback on broadcasting our meetings live on the internet, and people said it was just going to be the end of the world. We can't do this. It's just, we don't want to do that. And I said, well, I'm just going to bring my wife in. I'll just do it on Facebook, and I'm going to do it. So we might as well do it. And we started to do it, and guess what? We haven't had any problems.
No.
None at all.
No, I didn't realize that started with you.
And we, a lot of they'd been talking about doing it before, but they just could never get it done. And some of the folks that used to come to the council meetings and yell and scream, they stopped showing up. I don't know why, but
they can watch it from home.
They could watch it from home, whatever it might have been. But we just really were looking to take those extra steps on what we could do to improve the way the city speaks and listens to people. And then Steve came when we hired Steve, and he had a lot of great ideas. Like, for example, putting a sign up when someone's demolishing a house, or there's going to be a new house going up, to let the neighbors know that something's happening. They can look at the permits. They can call the city if they have a question about it. But you had some of those sandwich boards that you'd put out on some corners. But talk about, Steve, some of the things that you implemented, because we all were bought in on it. And one of the reasons I ran for a second term was just because I wanted to cement those things as the new normal. I thought 4 years wasn't enough. We need to improve communications, and Steve took it to another level.
Well, thank you. I think everything is a team effort, and it really does. It really is about the tone that's set by council, and it was very clear to me when I came in that everything was about kind of building trust with the community and building that kind of sense of things. And I do think, for me, you talk about the ready for a change signs. Sometimes the best ideas are just born out of frustration. That was me being frustrated with people saying, well, I don't know, I don't know that this is going on, and realizing, okay, people are busy, and, I don't read all my mail closely, and if it's a letter that's really complicated and bureaucratese, I'm not going to read it. Why don't we just stick a frickin' sign in the front yard that says something that doesn't look bureaucratic and says, "Are you ready for a change?" And it's not stating the language on that was very intentional. It's not change is coming. It's asking the question.
But you took it a step further. For example, we used to put that responsibility on, like, let's say a developer who's building a home. And we said, they might not open something from a developer because they're like, why would I be getting mail from this?
Yeah, I don't care.
From this home construction company. So we thought, why don't we take over the notifications, because people are more likely to open something from the city. I mean, it's just small little things like that, but they make a difference.
Well, and I think, I have appreciated having you on council, and because I've talked about this before, I look at council as our board of directors, right? And whenever you put together a board of directors, you look for what are the skill sets that we're looking for to help guide the organization, and having someone who I can call on when I've got a communications related idea or a community outreach related idea or a problem, and be like, Jim, I got this thing. I need another set of eyes, and I need another set of ears to kind of walk me through this. And I think, you've been great on that. And again, we're very lucky in this community to have council members who, in our current council, and I can say that we're 5 days before the election. I've talked with all the current folks. I don't think there's anybody running for council currently who's running because they're mad about an issue. They're running because they care about the community.
It's interesting you mentioned that, Steve, because people ask me, what's the big burning issue in the community right now? And there really is no strong burning issue that I hear a lot about. Every year we do these surveys and to gauge where people are.
The community survey?
The community survey.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a great name, isn't it?
It's very creative.
Survey. I mean, it really is.
I just want to make sure we're talking about the same survey.
It was very rewarding. They were presented to council just a few months ago, but I just want to flag a few things that made me feel very proud for the work I've done and the work of all the people I've served with. More than 9 out of 10 residents say city officials are trying to do the right thing. I think that's got to be the highest level we've ever seen or I've ever seen. We're also seeing progress in how people feel heard. More residents now say their input is welcomed, and complaints about not being listened to have kind of virtually disappeared. About 2/3 of residents believe city council represents them well, and that's a reflection, I think, of how seriously all of us on council take our positions. But when I saw, we do this every year to benchmark.
Every 2 or 3 years.
Every 2 or 3. But I'm seeing where it is now compared to 2017, and it's like, this is fantastic.
Yeah.
It's great to see.
Yeah, no, I think we've done, it's really rewarding. I forget what the pairing of the stats is, though, because you bring up the one where it's like, what'd you say, how many people trust us to try and do the right thing?
It was like 90 or something.
Yeah, 9 out of 10.
So there's another stat in there somewhere that's like, do you think the city gets it right? And that's like 7 out of 10. And I'm like, so that 20% is oh, they try.
Bless your heart, Steve.
Yeah, that's right. I was trying to think of what I call that the bless your heart differential. So yeah, no, it is, and we never take that trust for granted. And I think one of the things you and I have talked about in the past is, the wrong thing to do is to, spend too much time patting yourself on the back for the folks that agree with you, and the right thing to do is find those folks who disagree with you on an issue. Not disagree with you about everything, because people who disagree with you about everything, there's not as much to be gleaned from them. But folks who disagree with you on an issue, even if you win, quote unquote win, going and talking to those folks and understanding why they disagreed with you on that issue, so that probably they've got some insights where you can improve something.
Well, I'm always impressed, and I can say this because I'm not self-serving, because you are rolling off council, but I'm always impressed by how council will actually listen to people, and that doesn't have to come to a meeting. You mentioned people don't need to come. You can send an email. I think you guys are all pretty approachable. People call and text you too.
I've always thought just being honest with people is the best strategy. So if somebody calls me about a particular issue, I'll just say, my current gut feeling based on all the things I've seen is I'm going to support this. But, I'm going to keep an open ear, and I'll let you know at the end of the day why I did or didn't support this. But just kind of tell them where your gut is and but you're going to continue to listen. And I think that's kind of been the approach of everyone on council.
Yeah, I think, and it's been, again, it's, you guys are all independently elected individuals, but it's very helpful the way that you all have come together around kind of some of the principles in terms of how you deal with things. So we've talked a lot of business. I do want to, so we talked your professional origin story. You grew up here, right?
I did. Grew up off McCoy Road at the bottom of the McCoy Road hill. My parents still live in the same house I grew up in.
So we can find the ancestral Jim Lynch origin story.
My sister and her kids lived right next door. So, born and raised here, and kind of it's been an honor to give back. Everyone always says to me, "What's next for you, Jim? What are you running for next?" This is it. I just wanted to give back to my local community. This is the highest my aspirations or for public service.
Now, and then did your wonderful wife, Kim, did she grow up here?
She grew up in Toledo, but
Okay.
she's come to love Upper Arlington, and she loves living here.
Good.
I have to give her a shout out, because you were at that lighthouse in that story you told, and you pointed places, and she knew what cities were there. That's pretty smart. I would be like, I don't know.
Darren is
Buildings?
Darren is directionally challenged.
My car? I don't know what I'm looking at.
Darren.
You just follow the coast.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what I'm doing.
Darren, you've been here for 5 years now, right? 5 or 6 years?
5 years.
5 years. And I think if I challenged Darren and said, Darren, without a map, drive over to Fancyburg Park, you would have
There's no way. I've been there. To be fair, I've been to Fancyburg Park many times, but I could not find my way there.
No.
You could drop me off in some neighborhood and kind of point me, and I would never get
You
back.
go out your house, you go down Riverside.
I always map everything.
You only have a couple turns.
Yeah,
Now I can get to work and back 2 different ways now.
You can.
I can go.
That is
left,
progress.
We're glad to have you here from Delaware County, Darren.
I love it here.
Right here in Upper Arlington.
I'm very integrated. I'm just bad with geography.
Yeah.
It's I
Yeah.
don't want to make it sound like I don't.
Because
do stuff
we
here.
didn't have a requirement. We don't have a requirement for our city attorney to live here. I think we
No, you offer you.
do. We have one for our city manager. I think. Do we? It's not in stone, though, is it?
I get asked that question periodically, and I'm like, I said, the way I answer is, I don't know, because I already lived here, and it's one of those things where if you're the city manager, you probably ought to live here.
Yeah,
or
but
have pretty deep
I'm
ties.
kind of mixed on that because I've gone out with people who work in the school systems, and so the superintendent's required to live here.
Yeah.
And I remember one time with the heat of some controversies at Ohio State, I felt like anytime I went out, people were just bending my ear on this big issue that was happening. And then I go out with somebody from the schools, and they get interrupted 6 times at dinner, and they're asking about Johnny or Susie and the teachers. And I realize our superintendent, our city manager, people need to have lives. And it's hard to ever disconnect. And so, I think it's good to understand the city, but it makes it really hard for,
it's good in terms of, particularly having lived here for a long time, so having walked into the job with having coached people's kids, right? I mean, I think that made a huge difference for me. Heck, I coached with Brendan King. I mean, my first conversation about taking this job was sitting in the bleachers at a 7th grade summer league game with Brendan, and so I think that helps. It is hard. I will say, I don't feel strongly, like people sometimes in communities will talk about, well, I think the cops should live in the community. I'm like, honestly, no. And Maggie's shaking her head because her wife's a cop. And so, no, like there's certain kinds of jobs where you need to have the distance. I think teachers, I can certainly understand a teacher who does not want to live in the community.
I think city attorney's probably 50-50. Like, I've done both, and it's kind of nice to be able to unplug and go away and not be stopped in the grocery store. But it is also nice to, and Steve and I joke about this, when I'm at the library and like, hey, Darren from the city in the podcast, it's nice that people, that's our number one listening radius, by the way, the library.
The library.
They love us.
So it's a trade-off. So, and then your kids are getting to the age where you're not too far from staring at empty nesterhood.
No, and I'll tell you, my kids, when we're talking about just the public who comes up to you, I remember about 5 years ago, we were at Da Vinci Cafe, and my kid said to me, Dad, you have to go up and talk to every single person who waves to you. And I said, and they kind of, my wife said, yeah, it bothers them because we're here as a family dinner, but you're not with the family, you're talking to these other people. And so I've really learned now, when I see somebody, I'll give them a wave. I don't have to engage, but it's that balance.
Okay, a little real talk here for a second. Is that because you're a council member, or is that because you're Jim Lynch and you're who you are that you feel like you need to go talk to her? I mean, let's.
You know what? I'm going to bring that up at the family dinner table next time, because I think we will have a really strong debate about that. I think we might have some members of the family who would agree with you.
We'll find out for sure in about 3 months.
I've gotten to know you. I don't think that's going to. Actually, I think it might actually get worse for them when you're not on council, because then you're not worried about what they're waving at you for. You're like, oh, hey, Bob, how are you? Yeah.
So anyway, it's been great to raise my family here, and I hope my kids come back to Upper Arlington and raise their families.
So you're term limited, so you're winding up your tenure on council. What's the thing you're proudest of?
I'm probably proudest of the community center, and this is a long story. I'll try to make it as quick as possible, but I was kind of skeptical at first. I was worried about the price tag, worried about expending resources of the city and time.
You were more than kind of skeptical.
Yeah. And because I thought, it's been turned down so many times, and I just remember, and this is testament to great leadership from Brendan King and Kip Greenhill. They'd say, Jim, let's take it every step at a time. Yeah. And I pointed somebody to the Citizens Task Force who I thought was not, I didn't know if they were pro or con to it, but I knew that they didn't have an opinion. And if they did, it might have been against. Because I didn't want to have a bunch of cheerleaders on this committee.
Yeah.
And, it turned out that, the person added a lot of value with pro forma and making sure that we could figure out where we were going to break even. And so I just took it one step at a time, which is what Kip and Brendan had told me. And at the end, it just all made sense. But now when I go there and I see my kids' friends and I see my parents' friends and I see my friends. And just the other day, I was talking to a woman and I said, we're striking up a conversation, and she said she lived in Hilliard, came here to get treated from Ohio State for, orthopedics. Thought, this is a wonderful facility. People are so nice here in Upper Arlington. What does she do? Bought a condo right across the street.
Oh, really?
Because of the community center. I mean, that is a strong statement, and she loves it. And she goes to the group classes, and she's got friends at the community center. And so when I see kind of everyone, I explained to someone the other day, it's almost like a mini 4th of July every time you go there. The 4th of July, you get to see all your friends, and that's like going to the community center. Yeah. And it's really probably something I'm most proud of.
That's great. Any unfinished business?
Unfinished business. Not that I can think of off the top of my head. Did I mention something to you at one
No,
point? That
you didn't.
I was kind of holding my breath because I'm like, what work are we going to get to do within the next 2 months? I mean, we got budget season coming up. We need a read.
I mean, we can just.
No, I think
we
it's
can
just,
ignore him at this point. No
You know,
matter what.
keeping the city on strong financial footings and keeping the recipe that we know works, and that is over-communicate. If we have something that's controversial on the agenda, slow it down. We don't have to pass it in 2 or 3 readings. We can slow, and that's what we've done. Sometimes we've wanted to get as much citizen input as we can. We know it works, and we just need to continue to do that.
All right, we always finish every interview with 2 questions. What do you love about UA, and what would you change?
What I love about UA is, since I've lived here my entire life, is just, a lot of people, they move here and they say, oh, it's the schools, it's the location. To me, it's the people. And, I can't drive past just about any street and I see some coach who might have lived there who impacted my life in a positive way. If I drive by Kingsgate, can't help but think of Howard Warner when I pass his home. I mean, it was a dispatch named him as an everyday hero, helped cancer patients. You drive by over by Burbank and you drive by the old house of my sister's friend Lisa Wilkins. Her dad started CompuServe, and that was kind of the internet before the internet. And so for me, it's the people who I think we've got tremendous people here, and we are a welcoming place. And I think that's why so many people want to move here. But before I want to wrap that up, you did mention that we have an election coming up, and my recommendation is this really was a.
Now this will air after the election, by the way. Okay.
Somebody said to me after I won, "Are you going to run for city council again?" And I said, "I probably will." Their response, "You're going to be a terrible city councilman." And I thought,
thanks.
Well, why? Why? And they're like, if you think you're going to run again, you're always going to have a filter. You're going to try to appease people because you want everyone to like you. Take this approach. And I did, and it worked really well. They said, just determine 5 months before your term ends if you want to run again. Don't raise money. Don't don't wrap your mind around that you're going to run again, and you will always call it as you see it. You won't care about making friends. You're going to make the best decisions for the community. And they were right. I remember at one point in time it was the Westover Playground, Steve.
Yeah.
And
I remember I walked into that one.
We brought 6, they said it wasn't challenging enough for 2 to 5-year-olds, and so we wanted to put another $60,000 into it. And so I went to the playground, talked to residents, and they said, yes, it's fine. And if we need something, we'll just go to the park a half mile down the road. I voted against it. I probably would have never done that because then you had made all the neighbors upset. I voted no against it. Now, at the end, it made me feel better because we did engage the community and they couldn't determine what they wanted, so we kept it exactly the same way. But I think that's the recommendation I would give folks is don't plan on running again. Just call it as you see it. That's
awesome. Well, Jim, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for serving. It is a tremendous amount of work. It's not something you do for financial.
Correct. Correct.
The hourly rate that you earn as a council member, I think probably is less than you charge for the firm.
And there really aren't any perks either.
No. There's, other than getting to come on the podcast, which
you just finally cashed in your one perk as being a council member.
When the podcast passed that threshold of listeners, then I had
once we crossed 1 million.
Once we crossed, you got like 6 extra zeros on that.
Yeah. So I have to tell you, I have an update.
What's that?
Okay, this is really weird, but I went to Salt Lake Comic Con. Not really relevant, but there was a panel.
I missed it this year.
It was you ever seen the vacation movies? Chris, it was a reunion, so it was Chevy Chase.
If he hadn't seen the vacation.
Yes, Beverly D'Angelo is a UA native.
So she was there,
okay.
And they had a question line, and everyone's asking, like, what would you be if you were a plant or something? And I said, hey, you're from Upper Arlington. She's like, I love Upper Arlington. And we had like a 5-minute conversation about Upper Arlington.
Did you pitch her on coming on the podcast?
Don't
tell me you didn't.
We weren't supposed to ask personal questions, and I violated the rules. But I do have it on audio that she loves Upper Arlington. We got to find a way to reach out to her. She was totally into Upper Arlington. Jim, do you know anyone who knows Beverly and
Yes.
Angela? Do you really?
I do.
Okay.
Make it happen.
All right, we're going to make it happen because now you've got the. You
got
can,
the end of it.
you
Hey,
can be
I
like,
talked to
hey,
you.
I was the guy at.
Yeah, she was totally into it. So
Jim,
if you do,
the gift that keeps on giving.
you could be on the guest and get us our next awesome guest. So so she was totally into Upper Arlington.
Wow, you might actually, if.
As long as you guys don't say you have to travel. To
Oh
make
yeah,
that
you need to
interview
pay.
happen.
Can you
I
get us
don't-
first-class flights to wherever she's filming her next movie?
I mean, we can find it. Yeah, find out. But yeah, we can travel to where she.
I'll pay for it. That's
We'll
fine.
figure that
Yeah.
out.
If you can, do you really have a connection?
I will help you out.
All right, Jim.
All right. Sweet.
So,
All
yeah,
right.
I thought it was fun.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, Jim.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, and it's been great to be on this podcast.
Yeah. And thanks, Mrs. Lynch.